Welcome back to our 5-minute revision series. Today we're going to carry on with Unit 2 and look at virtual machines. So what is a virtual machine? A virtual machine is software, it's not hardware. So usually we have what's called a system virtual machine, and you might have multiple operating systems or multiple computers, in quotation marks, on one computer. So for example, in the old computer science GCSE course, you had to do a piece of coursework about old operating systems or different operating systems. So we used to have a virtual machine of Linux, but we still had Microsoft running so the students could complete their coursework. So software is used to emulate a machine. It's virtual, it's fake, just like virtual memory. So you could have two operating systems running alongside each other. You might have a virtual machine to store intermediate code for like Java virtual machines, so you can program in Java, or you might do one for like gaming emulation. So MAME, for example, is for old arcade games. So what actually happens, you have your host hardware, so that's your actual computer's hardware, your actual host operating system, which is like Windows or whatever in my case. Then you run some virtual machine software, such as, there's lots of different types, but I usually use VM Player. Then, as many virtual machines as you want, there's a virtual machine with a guest operating system and the applications you're running on that operating system. Now, whilst you're running a VM, you can still use the host computer as normal, but what you do is you designate certain resources to the virtual machine. So you might say you've got 16 gig of RAM, you might give 2 gig to one, 2 gig to the other, so you've still got the remaining 12 gigabytes for your host, but that's up to you. And you can then run them as you would normally, those three computers essentially. The only thing to note is that with these virtual machines, they are going to slow down your computer, and it's not going to be an exact replication of the real thing, but it's pretty similar, it's pretty good. So the application software is installed and run on the guest operating system, and it'll run as if it was running on the actual hardware as close as it can do. So some people class it as utility software because it is supported by the operating system and the hardware, and applications can run on both, as we already said, at the same time. So it might be really good. There's an exam question talking about a virtual operating system being created for a phone, because the phone's not been developed yet, so they've got a VM that runs that. It might be so you can run old software. So there is Scum VM, which runs old DOS games like Monkey Island, which is a great game. It might be to develop for another platform. It might be to handle malware. Some of those scammer payback sites, they have a virtual machine so their computer doesn't get affected when the scammers take over. Maybe to experiment or clone a system, build a really good image so you can image that onto another computer later on. However, as we've said, it's going to use a lot of your resources, especially if you're running something more modern, so it might not have the same performance as a true install, and the actual hardware might be better or worse. So I found when programming for Android that the emulators provided in Visual Studio from Android Studio aren't the best. They're a bit laggy compared to the real deal. It runs better on the actual one. Okay, and that's it. That is virtual machines or virtualization. Nice and short, 3 minutes long. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.